My name is Emma. I'm 49 years old. I am a wife, stepmom, and now more than I ever imagined. What I am about to share is a story that changed me in the most unexpected way. If you enjoy true life stories like this one, be sure to subscribe to my channel. I distinctly remember the night Ethan, my husband, brought it up at dinner. "I thought it would be nice to have Caleb stay with us for a while," he said casually. Caleb, Ethan's son from a previous marriage, had just finished his freshman year of college. The plan was simple. He was to move in with us for a while. I was ready to step into the role of stepmom. Ethan had raised Caleb to be respectful and responsible, and I expected things to go smoothly. When Caleb finally moved in with us, something about him changed. He was no longer the reserved teenager I remembered. He was a young man who commanded attention, whose quiet confidence was both comforting and unsettling. At first I wrote it off as nerves. Getting used to a new person in the house is always awkward. But as time went on, I noticed things that were hard to explain. His gaze would linger a moment longer, and when he noticed me watching, a faint understanding smile would appear. It wasn't obvious, but it made me question my perception. It wasn't just his gaze. He moved around the house as if it belonged to him, with an ease that made me feel something I couldn't put a name to. Then came the evening that changed everything. Ethan, exhausted from the grueling day, went to bed early. The house was quiet. Caleb and I were alone in the living room, and the atmosphere changed. I was in the kitchen, tidying up, when Caleb walked in. He looked at me with a soft, warm gaze that made me freeze. We stood a few feet apart, the kitchen light casting a soft glow, and my heart raced. There was something unspoken in the air, exciting and frightening. He smiled slowly, hesitantly, and my pulse quickened. "It's nice to have you around, Emma," he said softly, and I couldn't help but smile back, feeling something stir inside me. After that, I couldn't deny the change anymore. Every interaction became charged. I found myself lingering near him, passing by, barely touching, and exchanging long glances. I caught myself smiling, and my thoughts drifted to moments filled with unspoken possibilities. One evening I found myself outside his room. It was late, the house was quiet. I knocked gently on the door. "Caleb?" I whispered. The door opened, and he looked at me with warmth in his eyes. In that moment, I realized there was no turning back. Standing in the dim hallway, I felt a nervous flutter in my chest. It reminded me of my first crushes in my youth. I whispered, not knowing what to say, hoping he would understand me without words. He nodded slightly, sensing my hesitation, and stepped aside, letting me inside. The smell of his cologne wafted through the air, a fresh scent that seemed to belong only to him. My heart raced, but at the same time there was a strange sense of calm as I sat down on the edge of his bed. He sat down next to me, close but respectful. "You're not like that, Emma," he said quietly, meeting my gaze. "Like you're carrying something heavy." His words pierced through me. I took a deep breath, struggling to raise my eyes to his. "I think maybe it is," I whispered. I'd never shared so openly with anyone, not even Ethan, but with Caleb it felt right. He reached out, gently covering my palm with his, and a warmth spilled over me. "You can talk to me," he whispered. "I'm here." In that moment, everything changed. It was like a dam bursting. I told him about how lonely I was, about how being Ethan's stepmother and wife was just suffocating at times. I didn't tell him everything, but enough for him to really understand me. And then I kissed him. For those 10 minutes, we forgot about everything, about boundaries, about relationships. His hands moved down my back, lingering, as if he too was waiting for this moment. In the days that followed, an unspoken bond developed between us. Our communication was subtle, cautious, but there was a softness in the way we looked at each other, a spark we both felt. Every shared glance, every fleeting touch became a silent promise. One rainy day, Ethan was called away on a business trip, and I found myself alone with Caleb. The rain created a cozy atmosphere, intensifying the closeness. I was sitting by the window, watching the rain when he came over. He sat down next to me, our shoulders almost touching, and we sat in silence, feeling the closeness. "Can I ask you something?" he finally spoke. "Sure," I replied, though I wasn't sure what he was going to ask. "Do you ever feel like there's something in your life that you want but can't achieve?" I swallowed. "Yes," I said quietly, "more than I can say." He gave me a hard look. "I don't want to go overboard, Emma," he said softly, "but I want you to know that whatever you feel, I feel it too." My heart raced. It was real. We confessed what we'd been afraid to say. He put his hand on mine and we kissed again. This time there was no restraint, just pure desire. For a while we sat there, locked in the tension of the moment. The rain outside the window seemed to echo my frantic heartbeat. Time stood still, no one else was there, just Caleb and me, and our unspoken desires flickered like electricity. But a noise outside made me recoil. My heart raced as I looked out the window and saw a shadow moving toward the back of the house. Caleb looked at me, concern red in his eyes. "Did you see something?" he asked. "I'm not sure. Maybe nothing," I replied, though part of me couldn't shake the feeling that we weren't alone. Our moment was interrupted, and the weight of what we'd done settled between us. I jerked my hand away, trying to even out my breathing. "We shouldn't have done that," I stammered out, realizing the reality of it. But even after saying that, I couldn't deny that I was drawn to him. Caleb reached for my hand. "I know it's hard, but I can't pretend it doesn't exist," he said. I looked up, torn between wanting to let him go and realizing it wouldn't work. "Caleb, this could change everything." "I know," he said, "but I'd rather have it, even if it's just a secret, than spend another day pretending it doesn't exist." Those words echoed in my head long after he left the room. In the days that followed, we were careful around Ethan, unaware of the growing bond between his wife and son. Every glance together, every touch became a silent promise. One evening when Ethan left, Caleb and I were alone again. He put his arms around me and we kissed, his touch warm and his embrace a defense against the emotions we'd let loose. We talked for hours, sharing secrets and breaking down walls. It was as if we had created our own world, a private sanctuary. His eyes sought mine, asking for permission, and I leaned in, our lips meeting in a hesitant kiss that grew deeper. We lay together, his hand resting on mine, and looked up at the stars. For the first time in years, I felt at peace. I realized how deeply I had fallen in love with him. But as dawn broke, reality returned. It was a secret we had to keep, a love that had to remain hidden. As we were about to say goodbye, there was a knock on the door. Panic flashed in Caleb's eyes. Ethan's voice came from the hallway. "Emma, are you in there?" In an instant, our fragile world crumbled. I glanced at Caleb, who nodded before slipping out the back door. I took a deep breath, calming myself down, and walked to the door to greet my husband. The days that followed were filled with secret glances and discreet touches when Ethan wasn't around. Caleb and I became experts at hiding our emotions, turning every ordinary moment into a secret excitement. One afternoon, while Ethan was out running errands, I walked into Caleb's room. The door creaked open and he looked up to see me, his face lighting up. For a moment we froze, and then he put his arms around me. Slowly he tilted my chin up, his gaze was soft. He leaned down and gently pressed his lips to mine. The kiss grew even deeper, turning into a shared promise of everything we felt but couldn't say. We spent hours in each other's arms, talking, whispering confessions, and savoring the closeness. As the sun set, we lay together, bathed in the soft golden light, drawing circles on his arm. It was our own little world, untouched by fear or judgment. But as shadows stretched across the room, reality returned. I knew it couldn't go on like this. I wanted to run away with him, but it was impossible. There were too many things holding us back. "Emma," he whispered softly, "no matter what happens, I've never felt this way about anyone before." "I feel the same way," I whispered, my voice trembling. "But I don't know how we can do it." He nodded. "Maybe we don't need to figure it all out. Maybe we can just enjoy this moment." And in that moment, I realized that love doesn't always need the future to be meaningful. Sometimes living in the present is enough to grab hold of one beautiful, fleeting moment and hold it in your heart forever.